It's been nearly a decade since the release of DMC Devil May Cry, one of the most memorable controversies from Japan's attempts to appeal to the West. The game received fan backlash from its initial 2010 trailer all the way up to its release, and then in the months to follow as well. The game came, got its DLC, and even got an enhanced definitive edition in 2015 with a lot of genuine improvements. But it didn't meet its sales goal, and fast forward, and the main line of games is back on track with Devil May Cry 5 doing big numbers. So, end of story, right? Apparently not for game journalists. I want to make a video that is actually about this game eventually, but today I just want to talk about how I'm apparently not the only one letting this game live rent-free in their head. Seriously, I noticed a few months ago people are still writing articles about this game, nearly a decade later. Many are retrospectives appreciating the game in a new light in the current year, or looking at controversial aspects that still hold true to the time. One was even bold enough to call it the most underrated game of the decade. Seriously. I want to take a look at one of these articles that I think really hit the mark on what people have to say about this game all these years later. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at this article from The Escapist called DMC Devil May Cry has survived the backlash and aged better than many of its contemporaries. And I feel like this article kind of really touches on a lot of what, most of the people that are for some reason digging up the DMC grave to talk about really start to hit on. So yeah, I'm just picking this one out because it kind of seems like the best example. So yeah, the article starts out by, talking about what a different world is that, 2020 versus 2013, the year that gave us DMC. And, starts off with a quote from Lindsay Ellis, one of a near internet OG. It's nice, I feel like she's honestly gained almost more relevance in the current day. So it's very nice. But anyway, let's see what this paraphrased quote even has to do with today's topic. Apparently in her video on Borat, the subsequent movie film, she says something along the lines of, "The state of the world has oddly benefited some pieces of media." And the author of this article believes that there's no better case for that than DMC Devil May Cry. They say that the game was kind of looked at as just being a bunch of edgelord nonsense, but the dark reality of 2020 has really, pulled the mask off and shown how realistic it was. So they say that the edgelord feel came from how nonsensical it was to talk about nations under the thumb of, comically self-serving rulers, and how there was a total manipulation of the news cycle, and how, everything became a commodity, like even life necessities, and everyone was paranoid, nothing made sense. And that was the thing that made it, very edgy and cheesy. And yeah, I agree, those themes are very, we live in a society, but I think I think it's kind of foolish take to, kind of be like, wow, these things didn't exist until 2020. This message wasn't relevant until right now. It really hits home right now because it's obviously a product of its time as well. This wasn't some like high fantasy idea. I mean, you know, I was pretty young back then, but even like, looking back, I can think of, yeah, no, that's totally, we still lived in the same world. Granted, a lot of those things have been emphasized in the current year, or 2020 at least, but I don't know. I just think it's an odd kind of like claim to start this off, to act like this is some sort of new revelation. The article continues, DMC might still be a very gothy, punkish screamo song in video game form rather than a playable, eloquent essay on societal decline. Nonetheless, you can't deny that, with the benefit of hindsight, the points it makes are oddly more relevant than ever. So yeah, I guess this last line kind of, covers for the rant I just had, but I don't know, just because it's more in like the public consciousness of like, wow, there's a lot of fucked up things going on, doesn't mean like, I don't know, using those points as we thought that was edgelord nonsense. I don't know, I feel like either like it's bringing up some, big brain energy that we just didn't have the awareness to appreciate, or it's still just edgelord nonsense. I mean, it can be both, but it just doesn't seem like you're acknowledging it as both. It seems like you're trying to pick from one or the other. The article then stops here to talk about how a lot of what Ninja Theory did was actually Capcom's call, and how they were pushed to, not go for convoluted lore or really try to emulate the ideas of the original series, which is absolutely true. From what I've, seen and heard, it seems that that's totally like Capcom's direction was all, you know, go off, make something different, and they wanted this more youthful, edgy feel. The article then goes on to talk about the points that it really enjoys about gameplay, music, art direction, all that kind of stuff, and definitely some good stuff in all these categories. But then they go on to talk about how DMC stands out from the westernization flops, and just that statement in general, I'd have to agree with, because, like I said, it's been living rent free in my mind and seems to be living in that same space for a lot of people. So there is something about this game that's different from the other Western expansion games. But then it goes on and hits at this point that I see through a lot of these retrospectives that go, DMC was the greatest, we didn't understand it, and we should really appreciate it. Um, you know, this article says DMC is without a doubt one of the most satisfying games I've ever played, and it's the only reason I bought the HD collection of the original trilogy, which is the point. It's a game that exists to not only stretch the franchise's wings, but to intrigue those who otherwise might not have been sold on it. I think that's a point that gets brought up a lot. DMC is an amazing game. We have all these reasons why, we just didn't get it. We just didn't get it back then. And then it's usually revealed at some point later in the article. DMC was my first Devil May Cry game, and I love it. And, that's totally fine. And, I think that's, 100% awesome, especially a point like that it brought them into the series. But I just don't think it's a very logical point to go, hey, you just didn't understand, man, in an article that seems to be directed at, Devil May Cry fans to go back and look at this game. Because I think from the fans' perspective at that time, their criticisms were pretty valid. I think most fans have come around to say, hey, DMC is a fine game on its own. They just wish it wouldn't have been labeled Devil May Cry. I just think it's weird tact, it's something that no one got on arrival, and that just an misunderstood gem, because its relations with the fan base building up to its release were definitely flawed, and not it's honestly almost an experimental lesson in how to retain what appealed to your fan base when delivering a new product, or a reboot or a reimagining. They followed up with what I think is a very good point about the experimentation in this game helped lead to, decisions that would be made for Devil May Cry 5, the proper Devil May Cry 5. That's completely true from what I understand, and I mean, it makes sense. So yeah, I don't think anything was lost by this game existing, and I think in the end it ended up benefiting the whole. Another point in this article that kind of, beats the point that I've been talking about kind of this whole time is, they talk about how rough the fan reception was to this, and how, in many respects, that too is sadly a very timely aspect of its history. The sheer unrelenting hatred towards it for simply being different was never okay. I get that. I'm with that. I like, the DMC designs for the most part. I like a lot of stuff that it did. I just don't think that I don't know, I think a take like this about everyone who's just kind of being a hater because it was different is misguided. I think, it's a franchise, franchises come with expectations, and if you're just going to, subvert those expectations, it has to be with thought and taste. I don't think that you can really just take something that's so beloved for especially its characterization and kind of flip that on its head and expect that to be, like a chef's kiss, well respected meal for the fan base to be receiving. This next part I think is a little weird because I'm not sure what the point is. I think maybe they're trying to say that, the internet culture is more toxic now than it was then, but it's also addressing like how the history of this game is unfortunate, and that's why it was so rough because of the timing. So I'm not really sure which time period they're trying to say is worse. But anyway, they're saying I don't I don't start campaigns to have things I don't like erased or rewritten. But if DMC released this year, it probably would have received plenty of that and death threats and all manner of unhealthy things. From what I understand, I think those things actually happened. Obviously, a lot of people didn't want the game from its initial release, trailer, and I think I can't be sure, but I'm pretty certain there were probably death threats over this because I remember earlier in that there was pretty much death threats over everything, as there still kind of seems to be today. It seems to be, I don't know, almost more tactical today about, kind of starting an internet campaign to get something destroyed. But back then, it feel like it was very prominent for someone to just kind of be like, I'm going to, just end whoever worked on this. Love it or hate it, DMC has its place in not only, this series itself, the history of Devil May Cry, but kind of in the legacy of gaming as a whole, because I mean it is absolutely something that gets talked about all the time and has a very special place. For some reason it is honestly I almost say I might say even more than Bomberman Zero, this is the reimagining of a franchise that really just sticks with people for its tonal shift. And there's no bigger tonal shift that I can think of other than Bomberman to Bomberman Zero. But this is the game that sticks with people, and I don't know, I think maybe it's because there are good aspects to it and it's a good game, but there's things that people heavily debate. I see some people saying that the story is a blessing, amazing, so relevant today, and that's part of what makes it so great. I see people say, well, especially since Definitive Edition, the gameplay has really decided to hold its own and improved greatly, but the story and characterization are still trash. Very mixed feelings on either end of it, but still, it seems to be something that's endlessly fascinating. I want to talk about this game more in the future, more detail, more actually about the game, but I think just making a video about the perception about it, especially today, is very, I don't know, just something I want to hit on because I was just looking at, information, doing some research, and just was shocked to find that I found so many articles written within the last 2 years about this game. And yeah, just want to, kind of hit on this, poke some fun at it, poke some fun at the people who kind of, defend this game tooth and nail and it seemed to, I don't know, in my opinion, be missing the parts that made it such a controversy, even when acknowledging it. It just very between two worlds types of thinking, I think, sometimes. Like I said, DMC lives rent-free in my head. Does it live rent-free in yours? It certainly lives rent-free in theirs as well. So, yeah. Let me know you love it, you hate it, or you still thinking about it. DMC, Devil May Cry, that's it. See ya.